All right, let's just jump right into this, shall we? We are going to tackle one of the biggest, well, maybe the biggest mystery in all of science. Why do you have an inner life? Why does consciousness even exist at all?
I mean, really think about that for a second. Right now, you're not just a machine, registering data and sound waves. You are subjectively experiencing this. There's a feeling, what it's like to be you in this moment. So, why? What's that experience actually for?
And that, right there, is what researchers call the functional question. It's not just asking what consciousness is, but what it does. What's its job? Does it have any effect on the world? And that's going to be the core of our investigation today. So let's treat this like a proper investigation. We're opening the case file on the purpose of consciousness itself. We're going to look at the evidence, the major theories, the whole deal. And the very first question, the most fundamental one we have to ask is, does consciousness even do anything? I mean, before we can figure out its purpose, we have to establish whether it has any power to cause anything to happen in the first place. This leads us to our first major challenge, and it's a pretty startling possibility. What if consciousness is completely powerless? What if it's just a ghost in the machine of our own brains? It really boils down to this simple question. Are you the pilot, using your conscious awareness to steer your body and make choices? Or are you just a passenger, watching a movie of your life that's actually being directed by all the unconscious stuff happening in your brain? Now, there's a fancy scientific term for this passenger idea, and it's called an epiphenomenon. The core concept is pretty simple. Consciousness is just a side effect of brain activity. It's there, kind of like the hum of a movie projector. You can hear the hum, it's real, but it doesn't actually change the movie that's playing on the screen. And get this, there's actually some experimental evidence to back this up. Some studies suggest that our conscious awareness of making a decision actually happens after our brain has already started the action. So that feeling of, I choose this, might just be a delayed report, a little post-facto printout your brain hands you to let you know what it already decided to do.
But hold on, the case is definitely not closed. Just when it seems like consciousness might be useless, a powerful alibi shows up from a very strange place. The world of quantum physics.
See, there are a number of theories that say that consciousness isn't just a passive hum at all. No way. They argue it's an active, absolutely essential participant with real causal power, and that its power might be rooted in the fundamental weirdness of how reality itself works. Okay, so let me break down how this works. Step 1. At a quantum level, your brain is holding multiple possibilities at once, a state called a superposition. Step 2. Your consciousness then observes this field of potential choices. And here's the wild part. According to this theory, the very active observation in step 3 is what forces all those possibilities to collapse into a single, concrete reality. Which leads to step 4, a definite choice is made. So in this view, consciousness isn't watching the decision. It's the very thing that makes the decision happen. Now, if this quantum view is correct, the evolutionary payoff would be immense. We're talking about the source of genuine free will. It would give us the ability to spontaneously and flexibly react to a totally new situation, not just follow old programming. And when it comes to survival, that is a massive, massive advantage. Okay, so for the rest of our investigation, let's assume consciousness is the pilot, that it does have a job to do. So what are the leading candidates for that job description? Let's check out the lineup. We can basically group the main suspects into 2 categories. First, we've got functions that help us think and survive in the world. And second, functions that help us deal with ourselves and, just as importantly, with other people. So our first candidate is flexible control. You know how most of our lives run on autopilot, right? Like driving a route you know by heart? But then, imagine there's a surprise detour. Suddenly, your full conscious attention snaps on. You're analyzing signs, solving problems. Well, according to this theory, that is the core job of consciousness. It's the high-level system that takes over when our automatic routines just aren't enough. Next up, a function called informational access. So picture your brain as this huge company with lots of different departments, vision, hearing, memory, all working away in their own silos. Consciousness, in this view, is like the company's global bulletin board. It takes the most critical piece of info, say the sight of a tiger, and broadcasts it to every single department at once, so you can have one unified, coordinated response. It's the ultimate information integrator. Then we have what might be the most powerful candidate of all, social coordination. This theory suggests consciousness evolved not just to understand the world, but to understand minds. First, you become aware of your own thoughts, but then you make this incredible leap. You realize that other people have thoughts and feelings too. That theory of mind is the bedrock of pretty much everything that makes us human: empathy, trust, communication, society itself. And our final candidate is maybe the most fundamental: intrinsic motivation. Why do you avoid touching a hot stove? It's not because a computer in your head runs a logical analysis. It's because it hurts. That raw, subjective feeling of pain and pleasure is an incredibly efficient way to motivate an animal. This theory says that's what these feelings are for: simple, powerful, universal signals that tell you move away from this or move toward that. So we have a pretty strong lineup of candidates for the function of consciousness. But just when we think we're getting close to an answer, our investigation reveals one last really mind-bending twist. And this final twist asks a really crucial question. Is a function something consciousness does, or is it what consciousness is? Let me explain. A contingent role is like saying a heart's job is to pump blood. The heart is a thing, and pumping is what it does. But a constitutive role is different. It argues the function and the thing are inseparable. For example, the very act of making information globally available in the brain isn't something consciousness does. That process is what we call consciousness. You can't separate the two. So after reviewing all the evidence, the challenge that consciousness might be powerless, the quantum alibi, and the lineup of potential functions, where exactly does our case stand? Well, I think this analogy really sums up the entire debate perfectly. Is your consciousness the creative architect, actively designing new solutions and improving the system? Or is it just a passive observer, watching the elegant automations of a very smart but ultimately unconscious house? And the verdict is pretty clear. This case is far from closed. The functional question of consciousness remains one of the most profound and exciting unsolved mysteries we face. But now, you're equipped with the key theories and the central questions that are driving this whole investigation forward. And that leaves us with one final thought. You've seen the evidence, you've heard the arguments, so I'll leave you with this to ponder. If you accept that passenger view, if your conscious self is really just along for the ride, then who or what is actually in the driver's seat?